imperfect. It can just be that. Then, good morning.
Good morning.
It has
recording?
yes, I did remember for a change. Morning, Marcella. How are you? Good. Morning, Don.
Morning.
Morning.
All right. If you thought last week's koan was weird,
Why was it weird?
well, just a lot of the metaphorical references. This one has probably equally, if not more. But this is in both the Book of Equanimity and in the Blue Cliff Record. This is Enkan's, Rhinoceros-Horn fan. Case 25. Case 25 in the Book of Equanimity and case 91 in the Blue Cliff Record. Preface to the Assembly.
Didn't we do this one last week? I thought we did this one last week.
No, we did.
Last week we did poisonous.
Seppo's poisons.
Sorry, I'm confused.
Preface to the Assembly. Lands and seas are boundless, yet they are not apart from right here. Things and previous kalpas, numerous as the dust, all exist right now. As when one is asked to show it face to face, being caught unprepared, one cannot present it. Tell me, where is the fault? Main case. Attention! One day, Enkan summoned his attendant and told him, "Go out and fetch the Rhinoceros-Horn fan." The attendant replied, "The fan is broken." Enkan said, "If the fan is broken, bring me back the rhinoceros." The attendant made no reply. Later, commenting on this case, Shifuku drew a circle and wrote within it the character for ox, or for rhinoceros. Appreciatory verse. Break the fan and look for the rhinoceros. The word within the circle has prior significance. Who knows the 1,000 years darkness of the new moon? It subtly turns into autumn's harvest moon. There's no difference in the koan for the Blue Cliff Record, but the preface is a little bit different. So the preface in the Blue Cliff Record reads, "To transcend emotion, detach from views, remove bonds, and dissolve sticking points. To uphold the fundamental vehicle of transcendence and support the treasury of the eye of the true dharma, you must also respond equally in all 10 directions. Be crystal clear in all respects and directly attain to such a realm. But tell me, are there any who attain alike, realize alike, die alike, and live alike? To test, I cite this to see." And then the same case follows with some additional lines. So after the Enkan asked his attendant, "Fetch me the rhinoceros fan." He says, "The fan is broken. If the fan is broken, bring the rhinoceros back to me." And the attendant had no reply. Additional lines to this are, Totsu said, "I do not refuse to bring it out, but I fear the horn on its head will be imperfect." So forgive my Chinese pronunciation is horrible. So Ato commented, "I want an imperfect horn." Shi Shuang said, "If I return it to the master, then I won't have it." Sui Tao commented, "The rhino is still there." Zhu Fu drew a circle and wrote the word rhino inside it. Sui Tao commented, "Why did you not bring it out before?" Pao Fu said, "The master is aged. He should ask someone else." Sui Tao commented, "What a pity to have worked hard without accomplishing anything." So, yeah, those additional lines are somewhat important to the way what this whole koan is pointing to. So that just to break through the metaphor, this whole right. So you be careful whenever a Zen master asks you for something. Could be a test, may not be a test. You could be asking for a real fan. And apparently there was a real rhinoceros horn, a fan that was made from rhinoceros horn. Hopefully it was ethically
Yeah. I think
got.
this is before we worried about the ethics.
Probably. So the fact that but
they
the
were Buddhists, so they died naturally.
maybe possibly, yeah. But a fan, the one of the things that that we get upon transmission is a fan, and it's something that is carried as a symbol of transmission. The fact this one just happened to be made out of rhinoceros horn. So a common vestment, if you will, for Zen priests is a fan that's carried. And I have to imagine that if Enkan had one of these fans, that he probably knew it was broken. So his tenant probably knew that it was broken, and he knew that Enkan knew that it was broken. So he knew this was a test question. So what is this fan pointing to? What is it? What is the metaphorical reference? Your true self. Shishin, in his commentary, calls it the mind of no. The mind. What did you call it? All right. Who did their homework? I know.
So the mind of sugar pose or something.
The mind of no place. I forgot to underline it. It was a nice description. Of course, now I can't find it. Anyway, so true self. How do you break the true self? How can the true self be broken? And it's kind of an interesting phrase, a way of phrasing it. The fan is broken. But if the fan is broken, bring me back the rhinoceros. So if your true self is broken, actually the only way you can find your true self is by breaking yourself. That's the ego death that is referring to, is by getting rid of all of the ideas and concepts and symbols, if you will, of who you think you are, is what this is. So the fan being broken is that particular symbol is no longer functioning. That ego, that idea, that symbol of the true self isn't necessary. So there's nothing, because the self doesn't exist really, except as something we make up as we go along, these ideas. So there's nothing to bring. So asking for to go fetch my true self, he responds with, I got nothing. The fan's broken. No, there's no me, there's no self for me to bring you. So if the fan is broken, bring me the rhinoceros. And immediately when it's interesting that it came up again, because I don't know how many years ago I studied this koan, but I remember thinking the same thing. The same thought popped into my mind as in one of Rumi's poems. He says, break the glass and fall back to the glass blower's breath. So any ideas, anything that you've concretized into being your identity is a delusion. Not that the delusion is bad, because we need to assert a self in certain situations, in certain times, but it is basically a construct. It's something we make up. And we can change that, but most people in general identify as self, who you know, usually in the United States anyway, we usually associate ourselves with what we do. You know, I am an attorney. I am I am a Zen practitioner, or I am all this whatever it is I do. Other cultures don't do that as much, but we do. It's how we identify ourselves, and we get very attached to that. And when that identity changes, we go through all kinds of difficulties with that. Grief. There's grief that that self is now gone, and that aspect of what after I was no longer able to call myself an HR director at retirement, I was like, that self needs to go. I was so glad to get rid of that identity. Not that people don't use me for those same things, since then. But this getting back to what the true self is. The fan is broken, so the idea, the identity, the thing that you called yourself is broken, so bring me back the origin of that. Where do you source the true self? Pointing to the classic Zen, and we call it a concept because we put it into words, but it's not a concept, but this emptiness, this undifferentiated everythingness from which all phenomena arise, but in which have no identity within the emptiness itself. That's the rhinoceros from which the horn was acquired, hopefully, ethically. Then later on, Shifuku drew a circle and wrote within it the character for ox. Ox, the Chinese character for ox and the character for rhinoceros are the same. Mm. So the circle with the ox in it is a reference to circle, emptiness, and the ox herding pictures, that pursuit of enlightenment. So if you remember the story of the ox herding pictures, first the person looking for enlightenment sees the footprints and follows the ox, finds the ox, has this experience, then realizes this emptiness, and that's the 9th circle. The 10th circle, he's riding on the back of the ox backward, playing the flute, returning to the marketplace. So, important transition. Those are the 10 stages of enlightenment, at least according to the ox herding pictures. And again, this is in this particular school, the Igyo school, which is the school that died out in China. We no longer have it. Used a lot of these symbolic references as answers to koans. There was a whole system of symbols that were used as answers, and they were I can't remember which teacher. A teacher destroyed all the answers, so we no longer have them all, but we still find references to a few of them. So this one has it, K77 has it, so we'll run into them, again, because it was a popular school back then, it was being used. So these symbols were pointers to this experience of emptiness, of enlightenment, of no identity, of not knowing. Because there is nothing there to know. All that knowledge comes after the fact. It's stuff we make up, concepts, that we construct to forward ourselves as identifying as something as we move into the marketplace, where we need to encounter other identities and do business with them in some way or another. So this practice of Zazen is about breaking the Rhinoceros-Horn fan and getting back to the source of that fan, the source of ourselves, the source of our non-selves, if you will. So the, so that's the That's the simple explanation of it. Not simple to achieve, but oh, wrong one. Too many bookmarks. And that's what the last comment in the Blue Cliff record, not in the Book of Equanimity. What a pity to have worked hard without accomplishing anything. So if you're here to get something, you're in the wrong place. This is where you come, this practice is where you come to get rid of stuff. Rid of these stories, get rid of these ideas, get rid of these concepts that basically box you into a shape, into a fan, if you will, or into some other identity. And this is about deconstructing all of those ideas and concepts. Again, not denigrating those ideas. They have their place, they have their use, and as a tool, they're great. So if it is a tool that you are using for a particular purpose, hopefully for good and to cause the least amount of harm, is different from that tool using you, and being consumed by these identities that will eventually fall away, become something else, and we go through suffering when those ideas and concepts no longer function. But it's really about not getting anything, about getting rid of stuff. So there's nothing to accomplish, and Zen teachers tell you over and over again. I don't think I've ever studied with any Zen teacher that said they had something for me. They basically
follow me.
Yeah, yeah. They basically said, "I got nothing. You got to do the work."
So the image that I have in the Enkan very strongly was Humpty Dumpty, and their whole explanation is, and falling off the wall is not the tragedy, it's the point.
I missed the last part. Say it again.
Falling off the wall is not the tragedy, it's the point.
It is.
And you can put it back together again. That's good. I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, those old ideas, and that realization. And there are some people who actually, once their ideas and concepts of themselves die, that ego death, people are upset because they've now realized that who they thought they were all this time wasn't real. But then slowly the practice will reintegrate those things, because it's not about not being something, but it's about recognizing who your true self is, and that all these identities and thoughts and concepts and career choices, if you will, are just that. They're things that we do. They're not who and what we are. And this frees us up. My experience of it was absolute freedom. I could, be anything that I needed to be in any situation to take care of that situation. I wasn't stuck in, my HR professional role and only able to act out through that role. So there is this freedom that comes with this realization that hopefully is good. May not feel good because it feels foreign, it feels unmoored, because it is without any sort of concrete or concretized idea that we have of ourselves. It is emptiness. Emptiness and diversity, as Shishin puts it. Because within this emptiness, everything exists. Everything is there. But it's just not attached to anything at all. So all potentiality, that quantum field, if you will, is where all potentiality exists. But none of it is attached to anything, but can be at any given moment. You can attach yourself to any part of it and rise out of it as a Rhinoceros-Horn fan.
Broken.
Hmm?
Broken.
Well, you could be whole. You could be doing some fanning. That, might be useful if it's hot.
Well, the Rhinoceros-Horn fan and the cone is broken.
Yeah.
I'm attached to the broken.
Yeah, we get attached, and we also get attached to feeling good. We want this practice to feel good, and it doesn't. Anyone who's sat for any period of time knows that this bliss and repose, as Dogen puts it, is wrought from the bowels of hell. And the experience of that hell is part of the process. Not the whole process, but it's part of the process. A part of what we go through, part of what comes up, and part of what we have to take care of. So, and if we don't take care of it, if we use Zazen as a way of ignoring these dark and unsavory aspects of ourselves, those aspects go into shadow and take on a life of their own. And they will continue to haunt you until you do take care of them. So letting those things come up and handling them in ways that are effective and compassionate are part of what this practice teaches. And we do have to do that for ourselves if indeed we're going to be able to do it for others. It is not a mistake when the flight attendant says, put your own oxygen mask on first if you are to assist others to breathe. Because if you can't breathe, you're not going to be much help to anyone else. And our vow is, the impossible: save all sentient beings. Because nothing's left out of that, and that all includes you, includes yourself. So put yourself in the situation, in this practice, in this way of learning and being. That is healing for you, and then indeed you can extend that healing to others. Yeah.
I like the way Shushan was talking about that in this koan by saying, often meditative practices like Zen, people think that they've eliminated negative feelings if they ignore them. We think we can just act good and the negative part will go away. But that's not so. Even if you avoid the feelings, they are still there. Using Zazen to cover them over and ignore them is sitting in an ice cave. It's a form of denial. And Zen is not about denial. True peace comes at a price, and the price is no self-pity, no self-delusion. The price is letting go of the small grasping self and putting in the time, effort, and perseverance to really see clearly. The price is patience and courage.
Mm-hmm.
The structure of our identity is largely created by the pain points we're avoiding.
Yeah. Very much so. So those pain points are important to recognize for two reasons. Number one, that there are areas of your being that need to be cared for, and there are areas of your being to recognize as not real. That just because it isn't real doesn't mean it doesn't have an effect. Because these ideas, obviously we're living in a wonderful teaching moment right now, where people's ideas and especially ideas of themselves are causing a lot of suffering, and we can see it every day. We probably all have known people who have. Just spoke to a friend of mine a couple of days ago. Born and raised, in Los Angeles, and she's she's 69 years old and has been stopped by ice twice for, doing what ice has been told to do. Because we now have this idea of what the people who ice should pick up look like. So that profiling has been allowed by our Supreme Court. So here it is, that there is these we concretize these ideas, and the whole idea of race is this delusion that we've had for hundreds of years, that keep informing how we behave. So it's, and here it is, because I can remember the first Trump administration. I kept thinking, didn't we take care of this problem 40 years ago? And
we all got lulled to sleep by Obama.
The Supreme Court has just decided that because we took care of all of the voting problems 40 years ago, we no longer need to have the Voting Rights Act. All of the Republican states are now hurrying to demonstrate how much they would like to have the office returned.
yeah, so
They've gutted the Voting Rights Act already.
yeah,
Years ago.
they did.
They did it last week in a really phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All
I know.
So here we are in this world as it is manifesting today, which is different from the way it was manifesting in the 60s. I was very young in the 60s, but I still remember it. So what have we learned? What do we need to do now? Because this is not 40 years ago. This is here, now. And being stuck in what we think was right 40 years ago, some of it might be, but we've now moved on. We're a different era. People are hearing things differently, experiencing things differently, and we are different than we were 40 years ago. So being...
Speak for yourself.
Okay, some of us are different.
My friend, my mentor lawyer, was described by the LA Times as an unreconstructed 60s radical.
An unreconstructed. And he's probably unapologetic about that, too.
Oh, absolutely.
I was 49, so being kind of a Zillick, Forrest Gump kind of character all my life, and riding the crest of this great opening up, it just hit me recently that what I'm feeling is what most of humanity has felt due to oppression and poverty and the weakened state of our development. And so at this point the battle begins, of course.
Yeah.
But it's just nice to be able to appreciate this is how the rest of the world feels all the time, There's all sorts of injustice, all sorts of cruelty, and that doesn't mean, it means the battle begins now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that we've been lulled into a sense of complacency because we're in a coastal city. We're in one of the richest cities in the richest state, in the richest country, and so we have thought that everything's fine, and that has never been true, because the rest of the world has had its problems, some of the same problems over and over again. So yes, we are experiencing what a lot of the rest of the world has never stopped experiencing this entire time. But that is, and yes, that's important to recognize. But this practice is one of compassion. first of all, for ourselves, and second of all, for what's happening to the extension of ourselves, everything and everyone else in the world, and how do we take care of that? How do not get sucked into the ideas and concepts and identities that are manifesting in the world around us? How do we have compassion for that? I remember, it was not a popular. I sat on the Kaiser. I sat on the diversity team, and I kept, and this was during the first administration, and I kept thinking, who have we excluded in our attempt to be better? And I think that what we're seeing is what President Trump, the people that President Trump resonates with. Those are the people that were excluded from the attempts to make this a more inclusive world. So I think we need to take a step back and look at, we did a lot of good things, but what did we miss? Who did we miss?
You mean the deplorables?
The basket. The basket.
Who said that? Who called them?
Hillary.
Yeah. That's not helpful.
I can't blame the guy for having a father who was the most radical Ku Klux Klan member in New York. And one of his sons drank himself to death because of it, and the other one learned to survive with it. So there's some karma there.
Yeah.
It doesn't justify it, it just
is. It's just what it is.
Is that Trump's?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
His brother,
His father was the only Ku Klux.
So Trump never touches alcohol.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's I understand that we see a situation and we want to be delivered from it. It's like we see a period of time when there's no rain, and then we pray for rain, and then it rains, and we forget that there are people who are harmed by the rain. So there are. We didn't do enough. That's the only thing I can come to is we did the work 40 years ago. I was 10, but but we didn't do enough. So here it is. This is what happens when we lull ourselves. This is a perfect example of what happens when we lull ourselves into this space of complacency, and we feel good about it because we've shoved those parts that we dislike into shadow. And then the shadow is now rearing its head. I won't say its ugly head, but it's rearing itself and telling us and teaching us something very important. So what now? How do we handle this today as it is, as it's presenting itself? How do we have compassion for what is manifesting today? How do we break our Rhinoceros-Horn fan and get back to the source, get back to our origins, get back to our emptiness and our compassion? Because if we have identified as being more liberal than or more compassionate than, those comparisons invariably get us in trouble. And here it is presenting itself in very, very difficult ways to deal with. So there's work to do. There's work to be done, and the work can manifest in many different ways. We have our activists and our which we appreciate. The people who are out there on the front lines and have been since the first time. Yeah, but
The thing that I'm hearing here is dysfunction at all social levels, be it in the family, whether it's a company, whether it's a party, whether it's a country. Dysfunction is dysfunction. punishing someone else for their dysfunction continues the cycle. Learning how to be compassionate, heal ourselves, and create an example is a necessary component of bringing something better. Action may also be required,
Yeah.
but we need to start with ourselves and not continuing the cycle.
Yeah, and I think, I can't remember, what was the guy's name who, he's now collected over 200 Ku Klux Klans. Yeah. I mean, he did that by going and talking to people, by going, getting to know those people and letting them get to know him. And through that exchange, they gave up those beliefs.
Who is it?
I can't remember his name. I'll look it up.
That's all right.
Is this the Jewish guy?
No.
He's a black guy.
He's African American.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was his name?
And he decided to take a completely different and a pretty radical approach, was that he went to get to know these white supremacists. And through that exchange, those white supremacists, and it was purely personal, they were able to dissolve those barriers and gifted him their clan robes. And so he's now has over 200 of them, last time I heard.
Talk about being a Buddha.
Yeah.
Ox cart with silver bells.
Yeah. So quite the story. Not that approach always works, but that's one approach, and we all have our unique ways of exhibiting compassion. So that's the goal. It's what the Zazen allows us to. First of all, by destroying the ideas, the Rhinoceros-Horn fans, these concepts, these concretized ways of being, and allowing us to be what is necessary in that moment. I'm sure that with each one of those 200 people that this gentleman encountered, his approach probably wasn't the same, and he probably had to do a lot of listening, and true compassion for himself, because he had to take care of himself in that situation. That could not have been a safe conversation to necessarily have, but he put himself in that situation. So this is what people are beginning to call for. It's like we're not talking to each other. We're stuck in all of our echo chambers, and social media has not been helpful at all with this situation. It has only created more and more division. So it's time to get out of our phones and back to people, back to this conversation that we've failed to have with certain groups. We marginalized, we took the ideas that we liked and we marginalized the rest. And just as when other minorities were marginalized, they rose up and said, we need to be included. So I think that's it's a hard pill to swallow, because you hear them saying that those groups of people have been discriminated against, and then you have all kinds of yelling going, when? When did that happen? So I'm like, okay, stop with the judgment. Just listen. Mm-hmm. See what people are seeing and feeling and experiencing directly. And that's really where this is. This practice is not about feeling good. It's not about getting anything. It is not the opiate of the masses. It is the anti-opiate. This is really about experiencing reality just as it is, not as we want it to be, but just as it is. And that's the hard work. So if you came for a drug that was going to make you feel good, not that Zazen doesn't feel good at times, because it does. What comes up in Zazen is the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly. It's all there, all of it, without exception. And I'm reminded every day, especially when I hear someone that I disagree with, the Buddha's words come, ringing back in my head. All beings, all beings have the wisdom of the Tathagata. He did not exclude anything or anyone. And if indeed this is who and what I want to emulate, then I too have to let all beings in.
Like the Maizumi Roshi quote that you said before of it might be so.
Oh, yeah.
When something came up that he didn't necessarily understand or agree with, he would say
It might be so.
It might be so.
Yeah.
So I think.
And for that person, whoever is speaking, whatever that so is, for them, that's real.
Yeah.
That's how they're
I'm
identified.
reminded of a koan where this Zen master keeps on saying, "Is that so?" as he gets accused of having gotten a girl pregnant. He winds up raising the kid. The girl admits who the father really was. The child is taken away from him. His reputation gets, and every single time he says, "Is that so?"
Yeah.
Right.
Hakuin. That was yeah. So yeah, and I and he just took care of the child and had to go begging in a different village because people stopped giving to him as a result of his reputation being ruined. So quite the impact for him and his temple. But he just that what was so was he had a child that needed food, and he needed to take care of that child, and he did it until the mother came back and got it. So yeah, so those are the situations that arise, and it's often hard to hear, what it is people are claiming to be true. But let's pause and ask, is that so? Is that real? Is that possible? And if indeed we meet people where they are, we put ourselves where those people are, and suspend disbelief. Just be present with whomever is there, whatever is there in front of you, to take care of, and just take care of it in the best way possible, the most compassionate way possible. Because, certainly enough conspiracy theories to go around. We can make up all kinds of stuff to excuse our behavior. But what's real? What's right there in front of you? And what is that of the person, that of the situation? How is it presenting? How is it manifesting? And how do I take care of it? How do I heal whatever is going on there? Or if it's something good, how do I celebrate what's going on there? Because it's not all gloom and doom. I have intentionally found good news YouTube videos because the bad news is just so prevalent. So I put that in the search, good news. And there are YouTube videos that intentionally look for good news that's going on around the planet. So it's nice to have a balance. It's like, okay, it's not all horrible and doom and gloom and narcissistic behavior. There's some people out there doing some really great things. Celebrating with those people and helping to heal those people who are being harmed. It's what we promise to do.
We have 200 years, but every decade has been better than the previous on at least some measures, and most of them on pretty much all measures. There's some exceptions. World War II was pretty bad. But overall, the trend has been life is better every decade. And the last decade has been a hard one, but most of the things you measure, it's still better.
Yeah.
For Americans.
No,
Oh, no.
worldwide, the number of people in extreme poverty fell again.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, all over the world there are people who are working very hard and doing a lot of great things. So you have to, and it's hard to find them. It's you can find all the bad news, all the opinions and the ranting and the raving. That's easy to find. But trying to find people who are doing good things, because one of my majors was a journalism major in college, and the theme back then, 45 years ago when I was in college, was if it bleeds, it leads. That's still, I think that's still the case. But here we are today. All right. Questions, comments, disagreements? Anything from Zoom? Don, Kirk, Marcella?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. Thanks, Don. All right. Thank you, everybody.